A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice channel. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you're having a good start to the week, and I hope you all had a very good weekend as well. You've got to ask yourself sometimes, haven't you? Just what is it about us that makes us support West Ham United? Yeah, for the love of it. We love the club. We love the history. We love everything about West Ham, everything that we should love about West Ham. And then there are things that we absolutely hate about West Ham. And I think one of them, I think we can all agree, is that we all really, really hate the transfer window. We just wish it was easier. We just wish it was a lot more straightforward than it is, because it gives you palpitations. It gives you virtual heart attacks. You don't know whether you're coming or going. And I've got to be honest, tonight's show is not going to probably make it any clearer for you either, I'm afraid. So before I do anything, let's go into the chat. Why has that just gone off? Before I do anything, let's go into the chat and see who's there. I'll go scroll all the way up to the top. Who have we got? Good evening, Anthony. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mates. Much appreciated. No Captain Morgan's tonight. It's school night. I can't afford to drink during the week. Good evening, Foxes. Same script, beginning of last season. You are correct, unfortunately. There you go. That's why it's not being plugged in properly. It's all right. It's where my notes are, and that just disappeared. But if I don't have a technical faux pas, you know it's not my show. Good evening. Anyway, yes, same script, beginning of last season, exactly the same. Anthony, I see a new committee has been formed to look over the loan of players at our academy. Mark Noble, Potts, Brown, etc. Yes, apparently so. I don't think that's a bad thing. But of course, sometimes doing things by committee isn't always the best way of going about things, is it? Especially on transfers. Good evening, usual. Or if the West Ham channels are to be believed, the club is falling apart before a ball is even kicked. Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing that makes you upset. That sort of winds you up and makes you just sort of wonder what on earth is going on. And it's true. Good evening, Hamret. I hope you're well. We really know how to be victims of our own success at this club, don't we? When is Sully going to grow a pair and tell Moyes to walk? Well, that's going to be part of the show because, of course, I'm sure you've heard. And if you've seen the videos I've done and various other channels have done over the past few days, all this stuff about, Moyes not being able to sort of tell Sullivan not being able to tell Moyes, exactly how things should be done, not really leading. And by tonight, I kind of heard that it seems that Moyes is definitely still in charge of transfers, along with Rob Newman. And that is really the odd thing, because we all speculated, didn't we, that with Steidten coming in, Newman's days were going to be numbered. Seems not, but I'll talk all about that a little bit later on. Good evening to you, Steve. Two of the same, not holding my breath. You could argue that that's true. Good evening, Daniela. I hope you're well. Ballon, good evening to you. Just seen Andre Gray and Canary Wharf subway in the West Ham tracksuit. Here we go. Good evening, Chris. I hope you're well. Circus from top to bottom. You know what? I've always tried to be kind of like, like the half glass full man. But I have to be honest, after speaking to Sean Whetstone earlier on today, even I'm baffled and thinking, what on earth is going on? Now, I know a lot of you don't like Sean, but I've got to be honest. I've known him now for quite a few years. He's a West Ham fan like all of us. And when he starts going, it's a bit of a shit show, you've got to start believing it. Because normally he'll give it the, it's all okay. Don't worry about all the rumours, etc., etc. But when he starts panicking, then there's a problem. Who else have we got? Galispera to you, Keith. I hope you're well, mate. Good evening to you, Ed. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. No sign Borges. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute and why there's no current sign of him. Peter, good evening to you. Borges will go to a club where youth is given a chance. Do forgive me. I'm distracted because I'm trying to log back into my notes. Who else have we got? I'm going to try and give everyone a say. So forgive me if I don't sort of put in other comments from the same people I've already said hello to. Good evening to you, Bubbles. How are you? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Steve, Mr. Tiley, how are you? Where has that gone now? Let's try and get that back. Yes, let's restore the pages. Good idea. Thank you. Why can't you reach the page? That's because the website's gone down. Let's connect. For those of you who are new to this channel, get used to this because this is what always happens with me. Anyway, good evening, Steve. Our club is just one big joke, embarrassing. Still only club in the Premier League, not to sign anyone. You know what happened though, don't you, Steve? We'll end up signing about 15 players. Well, we won't. We'll end up signing about 3 players all in one go. Right, got my notes back. I feel comfortable now. Steve Brown, good evening to you, mates. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Who else we got in the chat tonight? Andy, how are you? Thanks for all the messages, etc. The good chats that we're having. Really appreciate that, mate. Much appreciated. Good evening, Bill. I hope you're well. Mr. Lindsay, how are you? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the depression that is our transfer window. Oh, well, it could be worse. No, wait a minute. It probably... Well, it could be worse. Could be a lot worse. We could end up not signing anyone. Imagine if we didn't sign anybody in this transfer window. We will, but we've just got to be patient, I guess. Good evening, Hammers Mikey. How are you? Moyes is a cancer. It's quite a harsh word to use, to be honest. I get that you don't mean it on him, but, you know, anyway, no one wants to work with him. No one wants to play under him. No one wants to come to the club and play under him. Players and staff want to leave because of issues. Well, I'm going to talk about the players that want to leave because there are various reasons why, and some of them quite reasonable, but I will get to that point later on. Good evening, Paul. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Scott. How are you? Good. Stay there. Fofana with Paqueta is and Emerson would be progress. Agreed. Downs could work there, though Zakaria would be better. Souček needs to go or be played as a number 10. Well, I did say this. If we get a central defensive midfielder, I think you might see the you know, Souček, the old Souček. Fofana, interesting one. I don't think Zakaria is going to happen, to be honest with you. I think he's heading elsewhere, but I could be wrong. Martin, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Who else have I not said hello to? Let's say a hello to a few more people. Then I'll get into the heart of the show tonight. Black Country, Big Ben still on time. A bit late, a little bit late, but I'm sure you forgive me. You know, I've been later. Good evening to you, Hammerite. The circus is all down to Sullivan. Why would Steidten agree to work with Moyes when he identifies young talent? Sullivan, you're killing this club. Please leave and take Moyes with you. So a lot of people are saying much the same thing, you know. And as you know, I keep saying, you know, I've tried to be sort of balanced, but even I'm like now, you know, what really is going on? It's really bizarre. Good evening, Mark. How are you? Thank you for joining as well. Good evening to you, John. How are you? Sullivan needs to sack Moyes now. Well, you wonder what Sullivan, you know, Sullivan's a businessman, and you kind of ask yourself, why is he allowing things to happen, you know, the way they are? It is a little bit weird. Good evening, Rhonda and Tony. How are you? Good evening to you, Adam. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Who else have we got? Elbow. Good evening to you. My guess is Fofana, Steidten, and JWP for Moyes and Borges for both. You're right. You're right. You're wrong. Centre back, who knows? Yeah, weird one. Mr. Williams, good evening to you and all you long-suffering fans. I hope you're well, mate. Have you still got the tan? Mate, got the ticket today. See you in Bournemouth. James, we'll talk before. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining. Thank you for your messages earlier on as well. Good evening to you, Vinay. Why can't Sully sack Moyes? He has only won one trophy in his entire career, and he bottled it in the transfer market. Didn't strengthen to help win the Europa Cup. That is true. I agree with that. I think, let's not hark back to the past, but let's hark back to the past. January 2022, when he should have made at least brought one player in, which could have made a massive difference to the end of that season. We could have been playing Champions League, but then we wouldn't have won the Europa League. So there's swings and roundabouts. Neil, good evening to you. I can't keep up with all these signings. Don't worry, mate. Black Country, the Cats are... No, they're not around tonight. Good. Steve, Inter Milan have offered 20 million for Scamacca, according to Sky. Yes, I'm going to talk about that later on. Good evening to you, Sarif. I hope I'm very well, mate, and I hope you are too. Good evening to you, James. I hope you're well. Galimera, mate. I haven't changed sex yet. It's still Stel. Greetings from Melbourne, Australia. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining over there. What time is it over there? It's got to be early morning, isn't it? Oh, yeah, well, not too late. Richard, I thought it was all going according to plan. Well, it depends on what plan it's all going according to. Good evening, Andy. Hope you're well. It seems we're stuck again in a recurring nightmare. Nothing changes. Peak ads. I feel that West Ham will be going to the Champions League next year. I'm excited for this season. It will be thrilling. And on that, why don't we start with the first part of the show? Because we've got a game to talk about. I'm going to be very brief on it. Because well, anyway, the Rennes game. Let's be honest. It was good to see Agurd as captain. It made sense. It's his old club. He was made captain for the game, which I like. I like Agurd. Could he be a future captain for West Ham? I don't know. I've got a feeling that our future captain's still waiting to be bought. But if we don't get a future captain in the transfer window, then why not Agurd? I like him. I think he's a good communicator. He can talk in various languages. So he speaks Italian to the Italians, he speaks French to the French players, etc., etc. English, of course, obviously. I wouldn't mind him as captain. I think he'd be quite good at it. Look, the game itself, let's be honest with you, it wasn't great, was it? But this was the first time that Moyes had the whole squad, together. But he got all the international players, the players who were on international duty back, along with all the other players who weren't, and they only trained a couple of days beforehand. And you could see that they were a little bit rusty, to be quite honest with you. The only players that were missing were Ben Johnson and Antonio, because they're still away, having played being on international duty. So they're due back. My understanding, I think, is probably the end of this week. I could be wrong. Will they get game time against Bayer Leverkusen? I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. But they'll be back in training, and I'm sure they'll be ready. Oh, actually, I wonder if they're not back until just before Bournemouth. But either way, they're the only players that were still away. Look, the game itself, because we were a little bit incoherent. I understood that we didn't play well. It was a bit lackluster. There were players there that clearly weren't fit enough. Danny Ings, etc., was clearly not fit. Clearly still can't play the system that David Moyes wants him to play. No surprise there. But Paqueta looked quite lively. He looked quite interesting. I thought he played well. But it was also interesting that this young man got the nod from the subs bench before Scamacca. Does that tell you much? I think it might do, and I'll get onto that a little later on. But I was pleased to see Mbama get on. We want to give youth a chance. We keep saying it, don't we? All West Ham fans keep saying, what about our youth academy, the Academy of Football, etc.? Why are they not getting the nod? Well, there you go. Was that a big statement made by David Moyes at the weekend? I don't know. Let's see what happens. But it is very possible. Look, Souček, I mentioned earlier, if we get a proper defensive midfielder in, we might see the old Souček back. And the goal he scored was classic Souček, wasn't it? Nice glancing header from a set piece, etc. You can see why David Moyes wants Ward-Prowse to come in, because that's the way we're going to score a lot of our goals next season. Then, Souček with Ward-Prowse with Souček on the end of his crosses. Well, who knows? But anyway, the game, the goalies didn't do themselves any favours. It was really interesting because all the chat was going on about Areola. He did have a poor first half. Let's not deny it. He's not been too good in pre-season, Areola. And I'm one that kind of is in his corner. I've been saying for the last few years that I think he should be our first choice, but he's not sort of covered himself in glory too much. And yet, you look at Fabianski's performance in the second half, and one could argue he didn't do much better, really. So the goalie situation is quite interesting. But like I said, good to see Paqueta back, good to see Souček, etc. I don't hold much, I don't hold much about the result. It's a practice match. It's a way of getting fit, etc. It's obvious that we were a little bit rusty, having had some of the players only back a few days before the game. I'm hoping for a much better performance against Bayer Leverkusen, who are going to be a very, very tough opposition this coming Saturday. But, it is what it is. I know people are upset because we got beat by Rennes. Rennes aren't a bad team, by the way. They're no mugs. And I think they're in Europa League as well next season. So, okay, we lost, but it was it was a run out. Now, those of you who watch me regularly, you will know I'm also going to talk a little bit, very quickly, about the women's team, because there's been a number of things that have been happening, to be quite honest with you. They've been represented. We've got quite a number of players in the West Ham women's team playing in the World Cup. West Ham duo Honoka Hayashi and Risa Shimizu helped Japan to a thumping 4-0 win over Spain in the World Cup. Japan notched three first half goals and a penalty in the second half, and good for them. We've also got our goalkeeper, Mackenzie Arnold, was in action for Australia, who kept a clean sheet in the 4-0 win over Canada. So well done to them. We've got a signing. Not a signing. We've got an extended contract with Abby Lee Stringer, having signed a new contract with the club. The 28-year-old will extend her stay at East London for a number of years. So well done to her as well. And what about the under-21s and the academy team? Well, the under-21s were in pre-season action at the weekend, where they played against I can't remember who they played, but they played a couple of games where they've lost one and won one. But it's been interesting because they've got a lot of players. Oh, yes, they played against Ebbsfleet, where they lost 2-1 in a pre-season friendly last Tuesday, with George Earthy having scored our goal. And then they were in action again a few days later, where they beat Colchester 1-0. So well done to them. It's interesting. Going to be a very interesting season for the under-21s, because they've an awful lot of those players are coming up from the under-18s. So players like George Earthy and various others who won the under-21s league, under-18s league last season, are going to have a much tougher time of it. So let's see how they fare. Also for the under-21s, they're in action. Not under-21. Sorry, under-19s are going to be in action in a league that's in Prague. They're going back to Prague. They're going to be playing against teams like Sparta Prague, Slavia Prague, Brazilian clubs Palmeiras and Flamengo, as well as United Arab Emirates club AIN. Don't know how they're pronounced. It's a tournament where under-19s are sort of represented from various teams, and it's going to be quite a tough ask for them, because the Slavia Prague and the Brazilian teams they've got good they've got good youth teams. They're very well organized. A lot of clubs go to Brazil to look for players from Brazil. So it's going to be quite a tough test for them. They've got a couple of group stages being played against Sparta Prague on the 28th of July, as well as Palmeiras. That was the other day. And they also played Palmeiras as well. So good luck to them. I think that's an interesting tournament that they're going to be involved in. We've got a couple of players out on loan. Nathan Trott is in action for Visual BK. And they lost against favourites of that league, FC Copenhagen. They lost 3-2 at the weekend. But Trott is getting a lot of game time, and good luck to him. Christian Heggie, who's gone out on loan to Stevenage, came on as 61st minute sub against for Stevenage against Spurs. And guess what? They thrashed them 4-0. Always good to hear one of our players beating Spurs. Freddie Potts was in pre-season action against Cardiff at the weekend after his recent move to Wycombe Wanderers. So we wish him well for the season as well. Kamari Swire, who signed an extended contract with West Ham, as well as Potts, made his debut in a friendly for Crawley Town. So we wish him well as well. And Keenan Appiah-Forsan is on trial with League Two side Stockport. Now, I don't understand why he's on trial. He's either going out on loan with them or he's not. It doesn't sound like he's going on trial to be signed permanently. And he's a decent player, Appiah-Forsan. He's been quoted as being the Claude Makelele of West Ham United. He's got a similar style. He's quite short, quite stout. He's quite a defensive midfielder. So good luck with them to them. And I hope they all do well. It's quite interesting that Sparta Prague thing I mentioned. I didn't think it started yet. And yet apparently we played 2 games. I'll check that, because it doesn't sound right. Anyway, I'm going to talk about transfers now in a moment, but let's go back into the chat. Good evening to you, Clive. I hope you're well. Good evening, Lincoln. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Robert, how are you? Is it true we've turned down Brennan Johnson from Nottingham Forest? Apparently so. And I'm going to talk about that very briefly in a minute. Good evening to you, WHU. I hope you're well. Schmiegel, how are you? Nothing much really. I fucked up a couple of things, but you know me, it goes without saying that I'm going to screw up one or two things. Rhonda and Tony, I don't believe all the rubbish that's being reported. A couple of signings and a win on the weekend, and then some people, the same people, will be saying we'll finish top 6. This is the thing I've always said, haven't I, in my shows? You've got to be careful what you really believe and what is true and what's not. Now, look, the whole issue with what's going on in the background between Moyes and Steidten, I have been told it is a little bit of a shit show. But all these transfers, apparently, Brennan Johnson is the latest example. We don't know how true that is. Let's not forget that, and as I've said before, agents always push the rhetoric, don't they, when it comes to transfers? They've got clients. Their clients are their football players, you know, and they make money when they sell football players. So we don't know how much of all this is true. And sometimes it's really difficult. If you know from the past, I've always tried to give you all the stories that are out there, you know, in a way to sort of make a mockery of the transfer market, you know, because so many stories are untrue. So you're right. Some of the stories that you hear aren't exactly, not altogether 100% true. Philip, I should be excited, but I'm afraid it's another day of doom and gloom with Dinosaur Dave. A lot of people are feeling that way. I get it. Funky T, good evening to you. Same old merry-go-round at the transfer circus, getting fed up with some West Ham channels airing a load of transfer Moyes crap. This is the thing. I've tried to be balanced. I don't know if I succeed or not. You tell me. I try to be balanced about what is apparently going on. I don't always get it right, but there's so much out there at the moment. It really is difficult to know what is realistic. Good evening to you, Ha. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining me. Good evening to you, Sean. How are you? I hope you're well. Who else have we got? Tim. Good evening to you. Oops, there's your message. Steidten is for post Moyes, but he has to get him now to stop him going elsewhere. Yeah, and that's going to be the heart of what I'm going to talk about. If you watched the show I did at the weekend, I talked about that. I think I did it on Sunday, where I said Steidten's not just been brought in for transfers. Steidten has been brought in to look at the longer term, you know, and there is a lot of work to do. Sullivan wants a different way of doing transfers, etc. And Steidten is the right person. So I just wonder, really, you know, is he going to walk away? I'm not so sure. Chris, give us something to smile about. Well, I fucked up. I hope you smiled about that. Good evening to you, Eamon. I hope you're well. Right, let's... so professional. I'm not. Well, you know that. If I was professional, I'd be earning a bloody fortune doing this. Right, I'll tell you what. Let me stop so I can take a breath and go into the transfer rumours. There's a lot to go through, and I'm going to try and do it as slowly as I can, because sometimes I get a bit carried away and I sort of go through notes. Yes, I do have notes. Yeah, I'm afraid so. So I'm going to try and get them through as best as possible. Look, as each day goes by, you know, we hear more and more stories. I've said this already, you know, that just sometimes they don't add up. Sometimes there are things that are quite conflicting from one minute to the next. I think that one of the interesting conflicting stories is all about the Harvey Barnes transfer that was mentioned in Jacob Steinberg's review, his write-up, I think in The Guardian, of the situation that's going on at the moment. I looked at that and I thought, hang on a minute, there's something contradictory here. And I mentioned it in the show I did on Sunday, where apparently we were working on the Harvey Barnes deal since last April. And then all of a sudden, when Steidten came to the club, there was a pause. And that pause resulted in us losing our chance to sign Harvey Barnes. And I thought to myself, hang on a minute, if the Harvey Barnes deal was being planned way back in April, when the league the league was still going on, then that must have meant that Moyes must have been talking to, I don't know, Rob Newman about it, or Sullivan, or whatever, and saying, look, if Leicester go down, this is one of the players I want us to target. And so that must have been like, okay, right. If Leicester go down, then okay, you go for Harvey Barnes. And I was told early in the summer transfer window, I was told, yeah, Harvey Barnes is one of our main priorities. So what happened then when Steidten came in? Now, we're continuously led to believe that Steidten doesn't have any input in the summer transfer window. So what stopped Moyes from actually going ahead and signing Harvey Barnes? I kind of like, I thought, well, hang on a minute, that's contradictory. I don't really understand that. We're either in for him and he's a prime target, or we're not in for him at all. And certainly because the contradiction for me is, if we stopped our approach for Harvey Barnes, that means Steidten had an input. You know, we brought Steidten in. There was a pause on transfer activity. We ended up, because of that pause, we ended up losing Harvey Barnes. How does that work? You know, because on one hand, we're hearing that Steidten is not involved in transfers. On the other hand, we're hearing that because of Steidten coming in, we paused our approach for Harvey Barnes and we lost him. So we can't have it both ways. And that's sometimes the thing that is quite confusing for us. Look, going back to what's happening at the moment, earlier today, I was advised that David Moyes is absolutely in charge of transfers this summer and will only work with Rob Newman for targets. He's apparently focused on just the players that he wants, and he won't entertain any other sort of links, etc., etc. I'm going to come to that in a minute as well, because we've heard tonight that there are links apparently suggested by Steidten. So again, what the hell do you believe? And is it as much of a shit show as everyone is suggesting? Look, Moyes apparently wants Premier League proven players, and we know that he's signed players from outside of the Premier League before. You know, because the current squad we have bucks that trend. We've got a number of players that have, you know, that until the season just gone, that weren't part of the Premier League. Paqueta is a prime example. He didn't play in the Premier League until he joined West Ham, and a few others as well. Moyes signed Souček. He didn't have Premier League experience. He signed Coufal. He didn't have Premier League experience. So you've got to ask yourself, why does he want Premier League proven players? Now, as I tried to sort of calculate in my head and said, okay, I think I know why. Because he would probably think, and again, my apologies if you watch my show from the weekend, you know I'm repeating this, but he would think to himself, I've got a pretty decent squad, you know, that will probably not do too badly in Europe, in the Europa League, but maybe I just need a little bit more Premier League depth, you know, in the squad, which is quite a valid point. It's quite a valid point to have. You know, he thinks he might be okay in Europe, but he wants just like Premier League players that are going to just give us that a little bit of impetus in the Premier League this season. What did we do badly in last season? We did badly in the Premier League, but we did very well in Europe. So I get there's a logic there. There's a logic there. But at the same time, as I've just said, Moyes has signed players who have not had Premier League experience in the past. So there's another conundrum there. There's you know, which one is it? Look, the measure of this is evident. If David Moyes signs the players that he wants with Premier League experience and we do well, he's proven right. If he signs only his signings, Premier League experience players, etc., and we do crap next season, then he's been proven wrong. And I guess the only way we're going to really find out was when this bloody window shuts, we know who we've got in, and then we see how we get on in the Premier League and, of course, in Europe. Now, your definition of what success or failure is going to be defined by how high you think we should finish in the Premier League and how far we go in Europa. So I guess the same question is going to be asked as was asked last season. If we finish bottom half of the Premier League and win a cup, a Europa League cup or whatever, is that a successful season? Or if we finish in the top 10 or in the, you know, even higher, and we don't win any cups, is that proven to be successful? Which one's it going to be? And you know, it's going to be really interesting how things pan out. If David Moyes has his way, which we believe he does, and he gets all Premier League proven experienced players in, and we do really well, you've got to then pat him on the back and go, you were right. But if he gets all his targets in and we do shit in Europe and in the Premier League, you can say, all right, Moyes, you've really fucked up this time. Off you trot. So it's going to be interesting. Now, this whole thing with Steidten, I'm trying to wrap my brain. Let's remind you why David Sullivan decided to bring Tim Steidten to the club. If you recall, apparently the stories go that Steidten was disappointed how Moyes and Newman had spent 160 odd million pounds last summer, and he wanted a better system of recruiting players. Also, Sullivan apparently admires the Brighton way of player recruitment with all the stats, etc. Everything's data-driven and so on. He's quite envious of that. He wants that at West Ham. Again, hence why Steidten has been recruited. He's one of the best at doing that. He recruits players based on data-driven evidence. So he wants to spend his money better, or the club's money better, and he wants a Brighton-style kind of approach. Hence why Steidten has been brought in. But what he hasn't done, by the sounds of it, is to tell David Moyes that that's the kind of system he wants at West Ham United, because David Moyes is going about his business as if nothing has changed. He's just carrying on doing what he did last summer and the summer before and the January before, etc. And if it takes him right until the last minute of the last day of the transfer window to sign a player, so be it. So Sullivan has got to take some control here. I said this again at the weekend. David Sullivan is part of, he owns the club. He's one of the major he is the major shareholder of West Ham United. He's a businessman. So surely he must step in and go, listen, lads, enough this crap. You got to work together. David, I brought Tim in to do, to give you the analysis, to help you find the best players. Tim, I understand what David wants. If he wants Premier League proven players, then you've got to help him find the appropriate ones. Surely they have to work together. I cannot believe for a moment that they're not. But I've been told by Sean that apparently Moyes is virtually ignoring Steidten and is only working alongside Rob Newman. This committee, apparently, the committee of Moyes, Steidten, Noble and Sullivan, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. It isn't happening because the committee is David Moyes and Rob Newman, who wasn't part of those four that were apparently in the original committee. There is no committee. And if there is, everyone else has got no say in it because it's all down to Moyes. Look, let's be real about this, okay? There's nothing wrong with David Moyes making final decisions on a player. And I'll explain why. Because ultimately, whilst he continues to be manager of West Ham United, he's going to want to have footballers in his squad that he believes he can trust to do a job. Okay? Now, I know, but Moyes is old school. He still wants to go and see a footballer for himself. Not once, twice, maybe a half a dozen times before he decides to sign him. We know that's an old way of doing things. Hence why Sullivan has brought Steidten in. But the two worlds were always going to clash. You can't have a manager like David Moyes being told that data-driven analysis is the way to go when in his head he's going, I can't picture it. I won't picture it. I refuse to picture it. I want to go and see that player play before I decide to sign him up. So we know it was always going to clash. But this is where I think Steidten's role, he's got a bigger remit. I've said this several times over that, Steidten is here for the long term. I think someone has said it in the chat earlier on. Steidten is here for the long term. And I think he probably understands that. I think he understands that quite possibly transfers in this summer transfer window was not his remit. I refuse to believe that this battle that's apparently going on is happening. I do believe that David Moyes is in charge of transfers. I do believe that he's probably relying on his trusted Rob Newman to help him find the players. But I don't believe there's this argument going on. I do believe that quite possibly David Moyes is probably not thinking about listening to Steidten. But at the same time, it's very, very, very possible that Steidten's remit is not for this summer transfer window. I can't corroborate that, but I'm trying to make sense of it all. Look, I think Steidten is here for the long term. I think he knows that quite possibly his input on summer transfers is going to be limited. However, what he will be thinking about, and I said this again at the weekend, and do forgive me for repeating myself again. I think what Steidten is here to do, Steidten works, as he's done for Werder Bremen and for Bayer Leverkusen, he works on long-term projects, long-term plans. This isn't the here and now. Steiden's not interested in that. Of course he's interested, but his remit will be go and find me a coach that's going to take over from David Moyes when David Moyes leaves. Tell me, work alongside Mark Noble and the other academy and development coaches, and work out who you really think has got the ability to get into the first team next season. Let's work on that, because what could happen is when Moyes goes, we know Moyes, we always keep hearing it. Moyes doesn't fancy young players, etc. They don't really get a chance, and so on and so forth. Steidten will be looking at the academy, the development squads, and probably establishing 1, 2, 3 players, however many, and turn around and say, these are the players that are going to make it next season. So Steiden's got that remit. He does have the longer term remit. So there's a little bit of pain going on. Now, here's the contradiction, because whilst we're going through this summer transfer window, there's £100 million burning in West Ham United's wallet. And David Sullivan doesn't want Moyes to spend that 100 million on 3 players who are going to average age of around 28, 29, 30, 31, etc. He doesn't want David Moyes to spend 30 odd million on Maguire. He doesn't want David Moyes to spend 35 million on Ward-Prowse. He doesn't want David Moyes to spend 40 million, 45 million, actually, there's what we bid, on Polina. David Moyes doesn't want that. David Sullivan doesn't want that. He wants Moyes to try and get players in that not only for the here and now, but also for the future. And here's where it starts to become a little bit more confusing. And I'll tell you for why. Many people believe that Carlos Borges is a Steidten target. Well, no, he's not. We heard before that he was a Newman target, and the reason being is because Rob Newman worked for Manchester City before he came to West Ham United. So if there's anyone that's going to know some of the young players that are worth targeting, it'll be Rob Newman. Rob Newman has identified Borges as a target. Now, everyone is asking, well, why the hell have we not signed him? Apparently, we signed him we went and signed him 2 weeks ago. Borges has been away on international duty. He played for the Portuguese under-19s, who were beaten by Italy in the final of the under-19s UEFA Championships on the 16th of July. Every player, now I said every player's is given 3 weeks off. Someone contradicted me and said on Twitter that it's 2 weeks. Doesn't matter whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It means that this player is only just coming back, or soon to come back, to Manchester City after his obligatory 2-week break or 3-week break. That's why we haven't signed him, because it's not just about flying someone out and putting a contract under his nose while he's trying to sunbathe in wherever he is. It's all about doing medicals, etc., etc. So, do I think it will be announced? We've been told quite categorically that he is 19 years of age, identified by Newman, that's without any Premier League experience. Well, that ain't, you'd argue almost straight away, well, that ain't a Moyes signing, is it? Well, here we are. Apparently, his trusted sidekick, Rob Newman, is the one that identified him. So that goes against the grain. So can you see how it's baffling for me? I can understand how baffling it must be for everybody else to try and work through it. So what else have we heard? Well, apparently tonight, we're going to give Steidten a sweetener in targeting Youssouf Fofana of Monaco, French international. I mean, really? Is that the way we do our business? I'll tell you what, mate, I'll keep you sweet. I'll go and get this player just to keep you happy. Oh, shut up. Goodness me. That is not the way anyone does business, even the shambles that's West Ham United. But apparently we're targeting him. Another player that you would argue is not a typical David Moyes signing. 24 years of age, French international, no Premier League experience, but now apparently we're targeting him. We've been linked to him before, and now we're going to make an effort to target him and try and sign him. £30 million, bloody no-brainer, I say. So again, there you are. What on earth is going on? You know, because you hear all these different things. A sweetener. When have you ever heard trying to buy a player just to keep someone happy? I mean, it's daft, isn't it? You buy a player because they fit into the system that you want. You buy a player because you believe they're going to do a job for you. You don't buy a player just to keep Steidten happy. I mean, come on. Now, he could be very much, almost definitely, a Steidten a player identified by Steidten. I'd say that. And that then breaks the whole myth of, is David Moyes working in isolation? I don't know. If he is a Steidten target and we are going to go for him, we are going to put in a bid for him. And I'll explain why in a minute, because one of the other bids that we put in tonight has again been turned down. So we're looking at other targets. If he is, that goes against the grain as well. Look, we keep hearing the same names, don't we? We keep hearing Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, Conor Gallagher, James Ward-Prowse. You know, that's what we keep constantly hearing because it fits the rhetoric of David Moyes is only targeting experienced Premier League players. But if we go for, if once Borges comes in, if we do go for Fofana, that goes against the grain, doesn't it? Look, I said a moment ago, the reason why it looks like we're going for Fofana now is because our second bid for James Ward-Prowse has apparently been turned down tonight by Southampton. Apparently, we've gone back in with around about 25 million plus add-ons. Southampton want 40 million for him. They're not going to get it, are they? They're not going to get 40 million, and they'll end up being stuck with him. I don't know. Will something be sorted with Ward-Prowse? I think it will. I think Moyes wants him. I think we'll get to some kind of agreement with Southampton. Let's not forget, he's going to be on big wages as well. He's going to be on around 100 grand a week, you know, so he ain't going to come cheap either by salary or by transfer fee. But apparently 25 million has been turned down. I believe it's 25 plus add-ons because Southampton value him at 40 million. They're not going to get that. But anyway, right. What other news? Well, we know Aaron Cresswell needs to leave West Ham United. And this goes on to the whole myth of everybody's jumping ship. Everybody wants to leave. There are players that want to leave, but for very, very different reasons. Look, Aaron Cresswell, absolute stalwart of West Ham, been with us for 9 years. He's been just a great servant for West Ham United. He deserves to look after his immediate future. Cresswell knows that he's only got a couple of years left in him. At this moment in time, he's only got a contract with West Ham United for one more season. And apparently, it's surprising, but apparently he's one of the lowest paid players in the senior squad. 52, 53 grand a week, poor lad. Don't know how he's going to get by on 52, 53 grand a week, but there you go. But Cresswell has only got 1 year left, and he knows full well that he's very, very unlikely to be offered an extended contract beyond that. Well, I don't know, actually. We'd do it with Antonio. We've done it with Fabianski. Who knows? But look, let's be realistic. He's probably, 1 year left at West Ham, and that'll be it for him. Wolves will take him on a 2-year deal, at least, and possibly with an additional year on top of that. They'll offer him more money, even though they're struggling, but they will offer him more money. But apparently, all it is down to the value of the player. And he's asked for David Sullivan to get involved. We value him at 5 million. I think Wolves only want to pay 2.5 million. Oh, fuck me. In this day and age, with in the grand scheme of things, is a deal, in between that, not too hard to achieve. Why are we asking for 5 million? We only signed him for 3.75 million 9 years ago. So I think Cresswell will get his deal. He will leave. He's been a great servant. I know he's been much maligned, as well by the fan base, but I think he's been a great servant, and I think he will get his move. And that will mean that our main target to replace him is Rennes left back Adrien Truffert, who surprisingly missed the friendly game against us at the weekend because he had an ankle injury. Of course he did. Look, Truffert, £15 million, 21 years of age, under 21s French international. I've talked about him before. is the target that we're looking for. You know, he's the only one left now. We've had other links. Was it Lee Matson from Chelsea and other left backs, etc. The cats are out. Other left backs, etc. But he's the one that we're looking at signing. And the minute Cresswell gets his agreement to leave West Ham, which I think he will, we're looking at putting in a bid for Truffert. Right, Gianluca. Well, look, come on. We've all read the stories. We've all seen his, I don't know what he's on, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. He's taken off West Ham player or whatever it was that he's done. Look, we know he wants to leave. You know, it's actually being confirmed by the club that, you know, that the player isn't happy, etc. And we also know that he wants to go to Roma, but he's only going to go to Roma. What do you want? He's only going to go to Roma if they pay the right price for him. Otherwise, he's going nowhere. Again, this is stuff that you've all heard. You've heard it a million times already. You know, Roma want to bid something like £4 million loan fee and then agree to buy him for something like around 17, 18 million pounds. It's not going to happen. You know, West Ham United want at least a minimum of £5 million with a cast iron obligation that Roma will buy him at the end of the loan spell for around about 25 million. West Ham United want to get their money back. I think gone are the days. Well, I hope gone are the days. I'll probably be proven wrong by the end of this transfer window. But it looks like gone are the days when we keep losing money on strikers. And apparently Inter have entered the race as well, because they've really upped the ante, haven't they, by offering £20 million for him. I mean, Italian clubs just don't have money. They simply don't have money. And it looks like he's going to, by default, he'll probably end up staying at West Ham. Now, his agents, CAA Stella, keep saying, player doesn't want to leave. He's happy. He's all right. You know, he'll see this season out, etc., etc. But of course, what we're hearing is something completely different. And now it being confirmed by West Ham as well, that there is talk about, you know, he's not happy. Right. And then we've got, I mean, there's so many other stories I could bring to you. But then we've got Brennan Johnson. Apparently, we've turned down the chance to sign Brennan Johnson. He's only worth £40 million. Look, I've been told this is much the same as the whole deal with Harvey Barnes. Look, that we're not really looking for a winger. We're not looking for, we've got enough, you know, we've got enough choices in whether you like them or not. They're there at the club. Bowen, Cornet, who else we got? Whoever else we got, you know, Ben Rama, etc. We've got enough options out wide, and that's why we're not going for Brennan Johnson. At £40 million, you would argue that if Moyes can't get Ward-Prowse for less than that, who's got a lot more experience in the Premier League, then he's certainly not going to be looking at bidding £40 million for Brennan Johnson. So I get it. I know the fan base are upset at that because they're thinking, why would you turn down such a deal? But he's not a prime target. The prime target at this moment in time is very, very evident. We need central midfielders. We need a central defender. And at this moment in time, they're the areas we've got to look at filling. You know, we need something different in midfield. Excuse me. You could see it was a little bit lackluster against Rennes at the weekend. We need something different. We need an engine in midfield. You know, apparently we're back in looking at Conor Gallagher again, even though the player has said he wants to stay, fight for his place at Chelsea. Pochettino has said he's part of his plans, etc. But Chelsea need money. Chelsea want to sign Caicedo, and Brighton have said, sure, 100 million, you know, and they're not willing to spend that much, but they need to raise funds, you know, in order to bring other players in. And they may look at letting Gallagher go for around 45. If he's sold for 45, some may argue that would be a good deal for West Ham United. Others may argue that would be too much to pay for him. There's so many other stories I can bring you, but these are the salient ones at the moment. You know, they're the ones that are kind of like keeping us all awake at this moment in time. You know, like I said, Borges, he's the reason why he's not signed is because he is away, and he's not a Steidten signing, a Steidten target. He's actually a Rob Newman target, and that makes sense to what I said earlier on. If Newman and Moyes are just dealing with the transfer market, this one makes total sense. Fofana, sod all this keeping Steidten, giving Steidten a sweetener. I think what we're doing is we're working through a list, and we're realizing, or we should have known already, that any of the Premier League targets are going to come at a pretty penny. You know, we're going to spend a lot of money for. Well, look at what we're being quoted: McTominay 45 million, Gallagher worth 50 million, Maguire 30, 35 million, etc. They're not coming cheap, and what we're doing, thankfully, it seems like what we're doing is we're going, all right, you know, we're not going to pay that much money. You want too much for him. We'll move on to the next target. And for Fofana, if the rumours are true tonight, we're going in for a bid on him. And I hope we get him. I hope we get someone like him. Someone who's a proper, decent holding midfielder that can make the likes of Paqueta and other midfielders tick. And then I've already mentioned Ward-Prowse. Gone in with a second bid, 25 million plus add-ons. It's been turned down. It looks like we might walk away, but I wouldn't be surprised if we make one final bid for him. And then Cressy, he will, I think he will get his move. I think it's right for him. I mentioned earlier about players wanting to leave. Cresswell wants to leave because he wants to look after his immediate future. I think that's absolutely fine. We know there's rumour about Antonio wanting to leave. Antonio wants to leave because he wants one big final payday. He believes he can get another major contract. He's already on 100 odd grand a week at West Ham United, 90, 100 grand. He thinks he can go one step further. 34 years of age. You know, you tell me. Well, unless he goes to Saudi Arabia, I don't know who else is going to go in for him. Someone will. If Cressy goes, Truffert is our main target as a left back, and Scamacca, who knows what will happen. But if Italian clubs want him, they've got to pay the price. They've got to pay the asking price. West Ham made it clear. Now, I was asked earlier on, offline, you know, would we let him go on a loan? And I kept being told, no, won't let him go on loan, won't let him go on loan. But I think if a club comes in and says, here's a certain amount of money to loan him, and with the obligation to buy, cast iron guarantee, we will sign him at the end of the season, then he will go. Now, I've been asked, would we then get a replacement? And I don't think we will. You know, Brennan Johnson is apparently who we've turned down. I guess would have been one example that we could get. He could play an attacking role, you know, maybe more centrally, etc. But I don't actually think we will. And I think the reason why we won't get a replacement if Scamacca goes is down to using youth. Now, we all talk about we want to have youth. We give youth a chance. Give Mbama a chance, etc. Here's another interesting thing. When I said it on Twitter that, you know, we may not, if Scamacca goes, we may not get another player in to replace him, another striker in. Outcry. How can you say that? You can't have Mbama leading the line. What is it we want? Do we want to give youth a chance or do we not? I don't think Mbama will start games. I'm not stupid to think that. But what will happen is we'll be reliant yet again on Antonio. Ings will be a square peg in a round hole. But I also think that the likes of Cornet and the likes of Bowen will be played at times more centrally to as subs. You know, Antonio might start. You might bring Bowen in the middle, put Cornet on the one side, etc., etc. What Moyes is thinking is he'll rotate it in order to accommodate our attacking play, and he will give Mbama more options. You know, I thought Mbama will go out on loan. I genuinely did. I thought this season he'll go out on loan, maybe to maybe a promoted Premier League side or a Championship side. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. As said by Billy McKinley said, I can't remember which game it was. After a game, he said he's given us food for thought. He's making us think twice about him. So I think possibly they were thinking about sending Mbama out. Now, with what he's done in pre-season, they're probably thinking, hang on a minute. This young lad might just be good enough to actually be part of the first team. And that's why I don't think if Scamacca goes, I could be wrong. You know, we might go in and get, I don't know, Brozier, who I don't rate much. If you want to bring Brozier in, you might as well give Mbama a shot. You know, but I think, you know, if Scamacca goes, Moyes will look at his squad and go, right, okay, we're going to get players in central midfield, defensive midfield. We're going to get a new left back, etc., etc. What else do I want? We've got Borges coming in, you know, who's going to be given a bit of a taste of Premier League football, sub, that sort of thing. But we've got another option out wide, Borges, Benrahma, Cornet, Bowen, etc. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll mix it up front. I'll play Antonio, but when I need to change it, I'll bring Bowen in. I'll bring Cornet in, or I'll give Mbama an option. So do we want to give our youth a chance, or do we want to go out and buy another striker who we know David Moyes won't use correctly? Right. Let's see your comments. I'm nearly an hour behind, so I'll try as much as I can to catch up as quickly as I can. Peter, we tried to send Sojit to Wickham instead of Potts, but they told us to get lost. Good evening, Dom. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining. Good evening to you. Eamon, I hope you're well. CC, good evening to you. Trust me, Moyes will not be manager when we kick off against Bournemouth. I wouldn't put a bet on it, mate. I wouldn't put a bet on it. He may not be manager by Christmas, but I wouldn't put a bet on him not being manager by the time we get to Bournemouth. Flamer, good evening to you. Give us something to cheer. Have I? You tell me. Have I cheered you up or have I made you feel even more depressed? John, anyone else waiting for Jim White saying don't go to bed and that all happening again? They won't do that again. Good evening, Si. I hope you're well. Sean, in the words of the Stranglers, something better change. Richard, good evening to you. Moyes is a stumbling block. Reason for wanting Premier League experienced players. He wants to play safe, remain in the Premier League, not be remembered as a failure. That's a good point. Yeah. Sullivan has to grow a pair and sack him. I don't understand. Sullivan does have to do something. Aaron, only Scamacca wants to leave. Cressy and Antonio just want one last payday. Absolutely. Scott, good stealth, though Soccer Canada seem to want to emulate West Ham United. I don't know much. You know a lot more than I do. Good evening to you. We are. Can't tell you how demoralised I am by what's happening or not happening at West Ham. Tim Steiden's appointment feels utterly pointless at this stage. What do you think now after what you've heard? Do you think there's reason, or do you still think it's a bit of a shit show? John, interim for Scamacca, and you reckon he's going nowhere? I have the text you've sent saved. Well, like I've said, if they offer the right money, he'll go. If they don't, he won't go. Good evening to you, man. Don't. Season starts in less than 2 weeks. If you have a bad first 10 in the Premier League, that's it. Then you're in for another season of relegation battle. I agree. Whether we buy players or not, if we have a bad start, it will be difficult. Good evening, Paul, tuning in from USA. I hope you're well, mate, and thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. Good evening, Mr. Horton. How are you? Oops. Thank you for joining as well. Let's try and get through some of these comments. CM, I haven't. Did I? I haven't. I don't think I need to. Please tell me I didn't. I'm sure I didn't. Vinay. Fabian, but you did. Fabianski and Sojek have picks of Moyes, and Moyes has picks on Sullivan. That explains everything. Schmiegel. What is going on with the Porsche deal? I hope I've explained that. They said the deal was done a week and a half ago. Why do these deals always drag on and on? I hope I've explained that. Neil, Sullivan is sticking 100 million in his bin. Good evening, Sahel. Sojek is 10. You better not let Paqueta hear that. Well, Paqueta is not a 10. Paqueta is an 8. So I think he'll be quite happy playing just behind Sojek. He'll be heading all those goals in that Ward-Prowse will be knocking over into the box. Imagine that. And then we'll go, what was all the fuss about? I don't believe that. Andy, Vinay, definitely Moyes has something on Sullivan and Brady. Bill, heard today via Gonzo that Sullivan is so loyal to staff. He kept one of his shops open because 2 people worked there for a number of years. He is loyal. He's blind loyalty, to be quite honest with you. He is. Sullivan is probably thinking to himself, what do I do here? Before the season, or when the season was ending, when we heard about our links to Steidten, I suggested then that I thought Sullivan was calling Moyes' bluff. I thought Sullivan was calling Moyes' bluff on 2 things: the trip to Australia and bringing in a technical director. We all know Moyes doesn't like travelling, especially that far, for pre-season. He thinks it's disruptive. He'd rather go to Scotland, that he's done several times over. Get the team up there, run along the windy, rainy beaches, and that'd be their lot. But that was the first thing, calling Moyes' bluff on going to doing an Australian deal. I'm sure that was dealt with. That was sorted out ages ago. You don't just do that off the cuff. Excuse me. And then the second bluff was turning around to Moyes and going, I'm getting a technical director in. I think Sullivan thought that Moyes would turn around and go, stuff that, I'm not interested, I'm leaving. Moyes has called Sully's bluff on both those things. Daniel, good evening to you. We'd love to see what our potential targets must think of our club from the outside. This is the other thing, isn't it? that we all think it's just West Ham. It's only a West Ham that go on like this. I'm sure, maybe not as bad. I'm sure it's not as bad as everyone thinks. However, the way we paint it on social media, Daniel, I know you're on Twitter and all that. The way we paint it on social media is like, oh my God, what's going on? Sometimes not everything is true. Look, I have been given confirmation that Moyes is in charge with Newman on signing players this summer. Don't dispute that now because I've heard it. I've heard it quite clearly, etc. But I just wonder, if players from the outside looking in and are reading all the social media stuff and going, my God, what a shit show. Because sometimes it isn't always the way it's portrayed on social media. Dan Law, good evening to you. Europa League champions this year. There you go. Positivity. Ben, good evening to you. The main man, thank you. Taking pretty much a week off watching West Ham news after multiple Twitter meltdowns. Interested to listen tonight. Tell me what you thought if you haven't already logged off. Good evening to you, Montana. I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping for the best. Peter, Moyes in Stratford McDonald's talking to someone who had their watch stolen a while ago. Good evening, Cameron. Quick question. Would you take a Saudi owner, yes or no? What a conundrum. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting question, Cameron, because we keep going on about how we've lost our identity. We've moved from the Boleyn to the London Stadium, etc. We've lost our identity as West Ham United is what we continuously hear. Under this ownership, we've lost our identity. They don't care about our history, etc., etc. How would it be if the Saudis take over and it completely transforms West Ham? We might be successful, but then what about our heritage and all that sort of stuff? I don't know the answer to that, Cameron, to be quite honest with you. I'll ask it back to you guys. Would you be happy with a Saudi takeover? I don't know. Will it bring... You can't even guarantee it will bring success. Let's see what happens with Newcastle. Because Newcastle, as well as any other club, all these clubs that are spending a lot of money are getting slapped now with financial fair play. They're getting fined, etc. The next stage is they'll be kicked out of competitions as well. So even if you've got big wealthy owners, will that make a difference in the transfer market, etc.? I just don't know. They might invest in the infrastructure. Yeah, they might buy the stadium. They might restructure it to make it more like a football stadium. They might improve the training facilities, etc. Yeah, all of that possibly with having richer owners. But when it comes to the players, what would they be able to do when they're restricted by FFP? And the reason why we're so restricted by FFP, as I explained, is FFP in Europe is a lot more stringent than FFP in the Premier League. So would still be, even if they're massive, bigger owners, more wealthy owners, there'll still be that issue to deal with. I don't know the answer, to be quite honest with you. I guess let's see what happens with Newcastle. Are they going to be better off for it? Are they going to improve? Are they not going to lose their identity? At the moment, it looks like not, but I don't know. Righty, good evening to you. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Lee. Through thick and thin is the West Ham way. All this negativity will get us nowhere. So hit the like button and make Stills. Thank you very much. Hammers, Mikey. Do you think still that Pekka Penis Sullivan is holding out for as long as possible for Borges so he doesn't have to start paying his way? No, I hope I've explained that. And I think it's a valid argument. He's been away. He's been on international duty. Every player, is contracted, certainly in the Premier League, to have at least 2 weeks off. He plays, he's signed for a Premier League club, so he will have minimum 2-3 weeks off. And I think he's only just coming back. Napoli are interested in the Gerd. That's the kind of rumour that does make me laugh. Ain't going to happen. There's no way we're going to sell a Gerd to Napoli or anybody else. Not this summer anyway. Paul, can see that game on Saturday is what we have to look forward to. I'll be away. Well, I'll be in camping or something in Wales, but I'm going to definitely watch it. They better have bloody Wi-Fi where we're going. Ralph, we're suckers for punishment. Yes, we tune in and it's a bloody mess. Hammerette, question. Would you take not winning the trophy and sacking Moyes, or as we are now? Would you take not winning the trophy and sacking Moyes, or as we are now? I take as we are now. I will never forget the night in Prague. in that stadium. I'll never, ever forget it. It was a fantastic moment, and everybody that was there, everybody that was in the stadium, everybody that was in Prague, everybody around the country that watched it, you'll never forget that, and you know what? We do have to thank Moyes for that. Like it or not, we do. So no, I would take winning the trophy all day, all day. Good evening, old man. I hope you're well. Socek nailed on for captain. It's possible, actually. It is possible. John, Moyes will want to piss on the fans off by giving the captain armband show. He's captain of his national team. I know it will piss fans off, but like I said, get a proper defensive midfielder. You might see a different Socek this season. Jason, good evening to you. I'm very well, mate, and I hope you are. If Moyes was to go, who would you want? Xabi Alonso, for me, did wonders with what he had and knows the Premier League, young, hungry, and works with Tim. And I would say he'd be the prime candidate to come in to replace David Moyes. Last season in his contract at Bayer Leverkusen, he works well. They actually get on really, really well. It was Steidten that brought Alonso to Bayer Leverkusen. He identified him. He brought him. It'd be a no-brainer, to be quite honest with you. I think it would be. I think he'd be prime candidate, to be honest. Hamret, Borges on holiday. They could have confirmed he's signed, though. It's stupid. Yeah, maybe that was announced. However, that was leaked, came out far too soon. Sai, Antonio will be playing against Bournemouth regardless of fitness. I don't know. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll start that game. He'll certainly be on the subs bench without a doubt. Andy, Ralph, West Ham best club, but currently a worst chairman and worst manager. Bubbles. Antonio should stay away. He can't hit a cow's ass with a spade, and you know what's gonna. He'll be our leading man next season. Looking grim. I don't know. You tell me. Is it still grim after what I've explained? Maybe. Good evening to you, Ray. I hope you're well. Jason. Question for everyone. If we came 14th under Moyes but won the Europa League, would you be happy? I'm going to say it now. Yes, I would be happy. Like I've just explained, the night in Prague, never to be forgotten. If we win the Europa League, it's in Dublin. Fuck me. What sort of party would we have there if we win the Europa League? And then we'll go, what, 14th? Do you know what? We'd be in the Champions League if we won the Europa League, and we'll have a new manager going into that season in the Champions League. Of course I'd take that. Wouldn't you? Come on. Please forgive me. I'm scrolling down to try and get through and catch up because I am almost an hour behind. Picat, sure, Antonio hasn't been informed for the past 16 months, but I feel he's going to turn it around when we're going to see the beast mode number 2. You've got more confidence than I have, mate, to be honest. Black Country, Steve WHE, we don't support West Ham for glory. I was told this in the 60s and the 70s. Exactly. Let's scroll down. Flimmer, do forgive me. I can't bring up all your comments, so do forgive me. Moyes and Socek are bad luck for West Ham for the last 2 years. Have they been? We've won a trophy. I don't know. Hammers, Mikey. Moyes only played Mbama to try and get the fans on side. Socek was cack and couldn't pass the ball to save his life, and flinging Fornals out on the right wing as well. I mean, what the hell? Yeah, I want to see Fornals play more central. I feel sorry for Fornals being played out wide. It's not his game. Andy, Areola wants a Waystell and is playing like a keeper who don't want to be here. He knows Fabianski's starting against Bournemouth and he'll be back on the bench. I do worry about that, to be quite honest with you, Andy. I think it would be wrong thing to do. And you may not be wrong. If he starts on the bench, he knows what's happening this season. And it wouldn't surprise me if he put in a transfer request, to be honest with you. Bubbles. Rennes finished 4th in the league last year. There you go. All right, the French league is not the Premier League, but finishing 4th in any league is pretty decent. Jason, before every kickoff, Kera walks out and shouts irons. That would lift the place. There you go. Scott. The first 3 games of pre-season were the best. Fabs had played in at least has played in at least 18 months. The 2 goals on Areola in the past games were weird, but I still think Areola needs to start. We're all going. The funny thing about this whole David Moyes-Steidten argument over transfers is Steidten will be the one also looking at coaches to potentially place Moyes if that were to happen. Yeah, exactly that. Goalkeeper at fault for the first goal. Downs 2 ration challenges and Bum trying to cheat a penalty and looking at any opportunity to fall down is frustrating. Yeah, I hope he doesn't get used to that. It's not the way we want him to play his football. I agree. Hammerett was thinking earlier about Cornet. He played as a left back at Lyon. He didn't. Good point. He did for almost a whole season. Done well there. Handy to know that with Cressy talking of leaving. Very good point. But I still think we're going for that Rennes player, to be honest. We are. Only West Ham can wait 43 years for a trophy, then serve the greatest depression as it is 1 month later. CM, stop it with me. Get used. Look, look. Sure, it's all West Ham. You know, I try and do it. I try and do it justice. Give it a few minutes. Come on. You can go and make yourself a cup of tea when it gets colder. Gets colder. Look, I'm wearing a long sleeve bloody sweatshirt. But gets colder. It's been like winter out there. John, oh my God, please don't mention the women. Ireland got a single point and crashed out before getting there. See, I don't think they've got any West Ham players in their squad. Is that right? I don't know. Howard, good evening to you, mate. Have we signed anyone? I think you'll realise we haven't. I hope you're well, mate. Let's scroll down. What else have we got here? Good evening, Shaky. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Andy again. If reports are to be believed, pretty much all are being shipped out on loan academy players. Wonder if that's another money-saving exercise. But no, I think it's the right thing to do. I really do think it's the right thing to do with players being sent out on loan. It develops them. You know, my disappointment is we send them on bloody loan to League One and League Two sides. I want to see them going to Championship sides. If they're that close to being first team, you know, being in the first team squad, I want to see how they fare. I want, you know, West Ham United to go and get them loans and cast iron, or as cast iron as you can, guarantees that they'll get some game time in the Championship. I don't want to see them going and playing on loan in League Two. They might do well, but it is part of their development as well. Now, Connor Coventry, I think, did well last season for Rotherham. You know, I think he did really well in the Championship. I think he had some really, really good performances. So, you know, I don't know what's happening with Coventry. He's in the last year of his contract. He may come back and play some part in the senior team. He did manage the under-21s, though, the other day, but he's getting a bit old for that now, isn't he? So, going to be interesting. So, no, I think it's right to send players out on loan. We're going. I'm not against having a British core at West Ham, but my problem is the players Moyes picks for this. And this is the thing. We're not, you know, something is clearly, you know, if we really backed him, it'd be no problem going out and buying Maguire, McTominay, Ward-Prowse, etc., and spending the money. We're not spending the money. So it's evident that Sullivan doesn't think the way Moyes is thinking. Scott, they just haven't seen Forsam play before and want to judge his level before committing. Yeah, fair play. Yeah, good point. Vino, Steidten knows all the talent around the world and he even wants to sign a few aliens, and Moyes says no. Good evening to you, Lee. I hope you're well, mates. We're going, instead of older heads that cost a fortune in fees and wages, let's go for a younger dynamic who would actually see a move to West Ham as a good one. I agree. But it might just be the last season under Moyes. Maybe. It may be a mixture. I said this. If we get, for example, if let's go back to those players that I've talked about, just to remind myself. If we get, for example, like Borges coming in, 19 years of age, okay, and then we've got Fofana, 24 years of age, if that happens, and then we get Schreufer, 21 years of age. All of a sudden, you start thinking to yourself, you know, if we also get Ward-Prowse in there and another experienced player, let's say we get 4 players in total, you know, depending on how many other players leave, and 2 or 3 of them are youngsters and 2 or 3 of them might be senior players. That's a good mix, isn't it? You still want your experience, but at the same time, you would get young players in as well. Andrew, looks like Fofana and Schreufer are back on. Hopefully, we start getting somewhere. Agreed. Lincoln, why would Forest want to sell Johnson? Absolutely agreed. It is a bit of a mind fuck, that one. Hammerett, Moyes defo wants safe recruits for his final season in charge, wants to leave with a decent CV, massive hindrance to our future. That's the conundrum, isn't it? We're going. So our pointless bid for Maguire has helped us learn Man United want 40, 50 million, so bidding under that is pointless. Maguire's wages are far too high. Agreed. You know, we made a bid. We said this is what we want to pay. They've said no. Move on. Good evening to you, NWO. Haven't seen you for a while. I hope you're well, mates. Daniela, guys and girls, We all need to learn not to let it get to us. Oh, if only that were easy. Good evening to you, Tel. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Tony Hammer. We need backroom staff as much as we need players. That is true. I don't know what's going on there. It's all gone quiet, hasn't it, on the backroom situation? So that's a bit odd too. Hammers Mikey. Moyes 12-1 to be the first manager sacked. Get your cash on it. Lincoln, Sullivan needs to pull the dildo out of his ass and get rid of Moyes. Question from WHU. The question is, I know it's not a question, it's a statement. The question is, why have so many of our first team coaching staff left and not been replaced? Or is Moyes going to promote our under-18s coaches? I don't know. It is an interesting conundrum, because you would think after losing 2 first-team coaches, but maybe, as we were told, he wants to do everything himself. And he thinks it's quite all right, only having the coach of Billy McKinley and Kevin Nolan and himself. I don't know who else. And he got the goalie coach as well. Maybe he will promote from within. I don't know. Andrew, apparently Chelsea are now sniffing around for Fofana as Caicedo looks to be staying at Brighton, prompting us to move in quick for Fofana. I hope we do. I hope we do. I really do hope we do. I hope that's the push we need to go and get him. Daniel, last couple of days I've seen Harwood Bellis linked with Leeds, who are confident, and now Southampton. Fulham are interested in Max Aarons. Would love to have had both. Well, interesting one, that one, because I mentioned Max Aarons a few weeks ago, and a lot of people said absolutely no way. So it's quite interesting to see what might happen there. Excuse me 1 second.
I'm sorry. She wanted to come.
Oh, is she outside?
I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem.
I saw her here and I gave her a cuddle. She was like, meow.
Oh, all right. I didn't even know she went out. I hope you're well. See you later. Cat's come home, hasn't it? Fucking the cat was outside. Sushi. Anyway, good evening to you, Taz. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Sai, another season. Willie, he won't be sacked. 3 more games, etc. Neil, my internet is working just about as well as our transfer strategy. Funky T, sorry, Stel. My remark wasn't directed at you. I never take offense. You know that, mate. You're the most balanced. Well, thank you. I do try. And that's why I watch you very. Thank you. I never take offense to comments, even if they're completely against what I say. I'm quite happy to read them out and hear them. But I know you're all good, mate. Thank you. Hammer it. Don't you think it's coincidence that none of this bollocks came out about no one able to agree to signings when they are pushing for us to all renew our season tickets? You conspiracy theorist, you. Osborne, good evening to you. This is unprofessional by everyone concerned. We're a laughing stock. Now we can see why Rice left and everyone else is leaving as well. Well, let's see who else leaves. Like I mentioned, there are reasons why certain players want to leave. I don't think it's a sinking ship just yet. Andy, Moyes turning down Johnson. Bet it's his age related. If he was 28 or older, he'd be all over him like a cheap suit from Asda. Do Asda sell suits? Lincoln. Daniel, what about Scott at Bristol City? Should be all over that. Surprised he hasn't been snapped up yet. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we keep hearing great young talent. Someone's going to take him. He's still there. It is quite interesting. Usual. Harvey Barnes was never ever coming to West Ham United. It's quite possible. Apparently, he was a target. Ryan, thoughts of Daily Mail saying we're bidding for Fofana. I hope I've mentioned that already. Interesting. I like Fofana, a French international. What could go wrong? Billy, if there are any problems at the club are double quiet. They're hiding a major bust up. Well, this is the interesting thing. The details I was given by Sean is close to the club. And like I said earlier in the show, when Mr. Whetstone starts getting concerned, there's got to be something wrong, isn't there? We're going. West Ham have rejected an offer for Gianluca Scamacca from Inter worth 22 million euros. West Ham asked for 30. A compromise could be reached at 25 plus bonuses. There could be a compromise there. Like I said earlier in the show, if anyone gets close to what we're asking for, if it's 25 plus acceptable bonuses, he's gone. He's gone. Doesn't matter if he wants to play for Roma or not. If we get an acceptable offer, and that sounds like it could be an acceptable offer. Oh, hang on a minute. Not 25 million euros. It's not 25 million pounds. So that works out to what? 23 million pounds plus bonuses? Too low. So it's going to have to be higher than that. PGADS. I don't understand why everyone seems so bitter. It's obviously the plan to hold on to the Rice money and put it in a massive amount of deadline day offers to get the best bang for buck. Fucking risky though, PGADS, isn't it? Shaky. Steidten needs to be able to do his job without roadblocks. Moyes needs to get back into his box and leave. Hammers Mikey. Sai agreed. What did Sai say? Let's see what Sai said. I can't find it. So let's just go with your comment. So I agree. Win one, lose two, draw one, lose two, repeat. Then we will get to the international break and Moyes will get Sully's fall back in to try and turn it around. You know what? I really don't think. I asked, what would it cost us now to lose David Moyes if we decided to sack him? And I was told it no more than around 3 million, just over 3 million. I think he's got a 5 million contract, 5 million a year, something like that. But because it'll be under a year, etc. And with it's always around about 75% payoff, etc. He could walk away on 3 million. So we could sack him and pay him off for 3 million. Peanuts in the grand scheme of things. Hammerette, there are so many rumours flying around because we have nothing decent to speak of. Good point. Perhaps Sully should have one of his talk shite buddies to clear some things up for us fans. Oh, don't encourage him. Mark, good evening to you. Moyes sacked this season. You can see it coming. You know what? It will happen. If Moyes doesn't do well, if it gets to around about October, November time, maybe up to Christmas, and we're languishing, he'll go. There's no two ways about it. He will be let go. Fred, no one wants to play for Moyes, even coaching staff. Paul, Premier proven players equals everyone knows how they play. Let him get in the surprises. Well, how would you all feel? Like I said earlier on, if we get a mixture, would that be the best approach for now? I don't know. Andrew, Sochi getting down, starting in midfield for Bournemouth. By the looks of it, you're not happy with that. Lincoln, signing players this late means we're not ready to hit the ground running. True. We have no idea who's playing up front yet. Well, we kind of do. Good evening to you, Ian. I hope you're well, mate. Funky T. I think Moyes wants Premier League players because he wants them to be able to start straight away without having to bed them in like the foreign signings. You know, yes, I get it. I understand that. But some of our foreign, Souček came in, played almost straight away. I think Sufel started straight away as well. You know, we've had players before Moyes who have come in without Premier League experience and got the hang of it straight away. Taz, hang on. If he knows he's on his last year and knows he ain't getting a contract, why doesn't he just say about the players he wants to be a loan to maybe buy deals? Yeah, I think that's what we went in for with Maguire, a loan to buy. But still, Man United that want to get as much money back for him as possible. Vinay, only Man City and other ultra-rich clubs can sign Premier League proven players. That's a good point. It's true. They've got the money, Chelsea, etc. Man City and a team from up North London bought a player for quite a bit of money the other day. Can't remember who it was though. Lee, I feel Moyes like most more international players playing for their country in Euros and World Cup. I feel Moyes likes more international players playing for their country in Euros and World Cup, to be fair. Yeah, interesting point. Shaky. Downs needs to learn to get stuck in more. He's afraid of contact. He's a holding midfielder. He needs to start getting stuck in more. Righty. Something seriously wrong behind the scenes. Moyes has to go or I fear relegation next season. I really actually, here's another interesting thing. If you look at the clubs that have come up, etc., I think, Luton got no money. They're not buying that many players. I think Sheffield United might suffer as well. Wolves are going to be in trouble. Everton are in deep shit. They don't have any money to spend, etc. So, there's going to be a few. But it shouldn't be that way, should it? It shouldn't be three worse teams than us. We should be staying in the Premier League on merit. But having said that, I don't think it will be as bad. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not wrong. I don't think it will be as bad. I hope I'm wrong, I should say. I don't think it'll be as bad as what it was last season. Jonathan, now that the Americans confined aliens, does that mean we confirm Sullivan and Moyes are aliens? Brian, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Enjoy your show, Stel. Not all the transfer spec with West Ham Bournemouth away will tell you. Enjoy your show, Stel. Not all the transfer speculations with West Ham Bournemouth away will tell the tale. I'm nervous, but always West Ham till I die. Absolutely, mate. You're based in Ontario. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Really appreciated. David, Moyes wanted Premier League players so he could be slotted straight in, unlike to say Bowen has to be bedded in. I, for one, don't agree with him. I want the likes of Fofana and JWP to slot into the midfield. Wouldn't be bad, would it? Imagine getting Fofana and JWP. That wouldn't be too bad, would it? How far away am I? Jesus, I'm going to have to scroll right down. I do apologise, really do. Hammers Mikey. Has Moyes got something over Sullivan and Sullivan is scared to sack him? Maybe Moyes caught Sullivan with a dart behind his wife's back in the boardroom. It is what someone said earlier. He's very loyal, Sullivan. Very loyal, and loyal, blind loyalty where he almost, doesn't do the right thing, and sometimes you've got to take the bull by the horns and do what is right for the club. But he's loyal to Moyes. And given that Moyes has brought him a trophy, he's even more loyal. Andy, Moyes' behaviour is pretty much gross misconduct in any normal working setting environment. Moyes needs sacking, then he'll learn his actions are wrong, but disrupted too. Moyes at this moment in time probably hasn't been told, to work alongside Steidten. And that's not his fault. That's why Sullivan needs to take control of the situation and explain what's expected of Sullivan, what's expected of Steidten, and what's expected of Moyes. David M. What I find laughable is Sullivan cannot see that there would be no problem involving Tim and David. Good point. Do forgive me. I've got to scroll down and try and catch up with your comments because I'm way behind. Bubbles. JWP penalty and free kick specialist. Why wouldn't you take him? Surely guarantees 10 or so goals a season. I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah. Domby. Surely we'll want to keep the Rice money as long as possible so you can skim the interest off it. I know a lot of people think that, but he's rich enough, but let's not forget, it's not Sullivan's money. It's West Ham United's money, of which Sullivan is just one of several owners. It's not his money. Thomas, Sullivan is deliberately lowballing offers. I don't think he wants Moyes players in. I agree. I think you're right. I agree with that comment. Chris, sack Moyes off and get Alonso in as soon as possible. Well, Alonso does have a year left, but I can definitely see Alonso being the manager next season. Oliver, the problem we have with Moyes and younger players is that he's not a coach capable of taking them to the next level. That might be a valid point. I thought Newman was let go. There you go. He has not been let go. He's still at West Ham. David, Sully has thrown Moyes under a bus, using Tim to provoke Moyes. Question is what is the real reason for it? Like I said, I think Steidten is in for the long term, to be honest with you. I think Steidten is in for the longer term project, whereas Moyes seems to be overseeing what we need, what he thinks we need for this season. Victor, I said before, Steidten joined as he visited the training ground and was unimpressed with the porter cabins. Hey, we got them back for another couple of years. Don't knock the porter cabins. Right, the new players should have been lined up before Turncoat even joined the Gooners. I agree with that as well. I said that we should have had the targets lined up. Apparently, we went for who's the player from Ajax? His name's gone. We went for the player from Ajax, defensive midfielder, the Mexican. Apparently, we put a bid in for him the day after the final of the Europa Conference League. Again, I don't know if that's true. Neil. Looking in from the outside, I'm surprised at how certain West Ham channels are that you won't be in a relegation scrap. You've lost the best player, not replaced him. It looks nailed on to me. Not to me. And I'll explain why. Like I said before, the reason why I don't think we'll be in a relegation scrap, we will replace the player who's best not be mentioned. But the players that we bought last summer, all the 8 players, or let's take Areola out because he was already at the club. The other 7 players have now bedded into West Ham. Some of them started off badly. Some of them were injured. Agerd started the season injured. Cornet perpetually injured throughout the season. We've had a number of injuries that sort of impacted on those players. They're all fresh, ready to go. All right, you can pick up injuries again. True. But then if you sign players, you can pick up injuries from players you've signed as well. I think they're more bedded in now, and I think it will be a much more stable unit. I think it will be boring. I don't deny that. I don't think the football is going to be very good next season, but I don't think we'll be in a relegation battle, mainly because those players that we bought last summer are more bedded in, and there won't be, and I've said this again before, There isn't going to be a revolution in the transfer market for West Ham United this summer. It's going to be more of an evolution. If no other player leaves at this moment in time, I can't see us getting any more than 2 or 3 players in. I know you won't like that, but that's what I think. If other players leave, like Truffert, for example, Skamaka, etc., or whoever else might leave, Creswell, for example, or Antonio, etc., then we might get more players. At this moment in time, though, I can't see us getting any more than 2 or 3 players. And the reason why I don't think we'll be in trouble is because of all those players that we bought last season having bedded in. You probably think otherwise. Chris, West Ham's board meeting is more like having a cross line with the Crankies. Andy, what is everyone moaning about this week? Same stuff, Lord Patrick, as usual. Andy, targeting and getting is a completely different story to Sullivan. If all the targets were bought, we'd fill the London Stadium at least once over. Kev, Sullivan too tight to sack Moyes. He'd rather risk another relegation battle right off the Europa League. Well, like I said, it'll cost him 3 million. Not a lot of money, to be quite honest with you. Good evening, Trini. I didn't know it was you on, what was it, Twitter or Facebook or etc. earlier. It's really difficult to know. See, you all have your, what you're named here, and then you're completely different names on other channels, other platforms. Sky said earlier that Inter offers 17 million for Skamaka. Bye-bye, Inter. Come back with a proper bid. Daniel, previous managers have confirmed Summerlee likes to deliver South American sweeteners each year. He has had that approach of getting players for not necessarily South American, but I'm going to read it right. Yeah, you are talking about players. Okay. He has bought presents for managers in the past. We know that. Good evening, John. I hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining. Axel, JWP, move on. Well, apparently, unless we've gone in with yet another bid, the last bid that we put in was turned down. So let's see what happens with that one. I do think JWP will come to West Ham, to be honest. Dom, move on for JWP. We shouldn't go, move on from, is that what you meant? Or was that move on? Oh, no, you didn't mean move on. You meant move on. Move on from JWP. We shouldn't go any higher than we already have. I agree. I agree with that. John, all makes sense. All makes no sense to me. You would think we would keep hold of the youth rather than loan them out before we get in replacements. Well, I explained the reason why quite a lot of the under-21s have gone out on loan is because a lot of the under-18s have moved up from the under-18s to the under-21s now. So you're going to see a lot of the players that won the under-18s Premier League and won the Youth Cup, etc. A core number of those under-18s are now going to be playing in the under-21s. So that means that some of the under-21s will go out on loan, see how they get on, see if they're good enough to come back and try and stake a claim in the senior team. And in the under-18s, you're going to have players moving up. That progression started throughout last season. Kevin Keane is doing a brilliant job, by the way, with the under-18s. He's already identified a number of players who are in the under-17s and the under-16s, etc., and they're moving up into the under-18s. Kind of makes sense. Mark, young players like Brighton and Newcastle, good teams. Absolutely. They've got it right. Brighton, without a shadow of a doubt. Montana. JWP is not the answer. Even if he was 25 million, we need a DM. They're just going all over the place. I agree. Even if we bought Ward-Prowse, you're absolutely correct. We still need a central defensive midfielder, without a doubt. I totally agree. David M. Steinberg said, West Ham said there is no point pushing Tim's players on Moyes and are backing their manager. What's the point of Tim being there then? That is also a good point. Moyes has, whilst he's still manager, Moyes has to be comfortable with the players that he's getting in. Absolutely right. No point giving him players that he doesn't want and he'll just sit them on the bench. Absolutely no point. Except, however, I don't know if you know this, and I only found this out today, there was a certain player that was given to David Moyes, going back to the presents that someone mentioned, Sullivan buying a manager presents. Guess who was the present last summer? Lucas Paqueta. He was not David Moyes signing. It was with Barry Silkman and David Sullivan. They brought him to West Ham United and gave him to Moyes. A fait accompli. Why the fuck doesn't Sullivan do that now? Here, I've got you Fofana. Here, I've got you, I don't know who else, someone else that we all want. Go on, use him. Yeah, There you go. There's breaking news. Sullivan and Barry Silkman were the ones who identified and brought, you might already know this, Lucas Paqueta to West Ham United last summer. So there you go. He did get a present last summer. Hammer it. As much as we try to put a positive spin on what is an empty window, but given what players have said themselves and the amount of unhappiness in the remaining players, it can't all be bullshit. No, it's not. It's not. And I've kind of, clarified that a lot of it isn't rubbish, to be honest with you. There is unhappiness. Scamacca is unhappy. Antonio is unhappy. Creswell is unhappy. But they all want to move for kind of different reasons. I think Scamacca's not being used correctly, and I think Creswell, like I said, looking after his future, and Antonio to a certain point as well, wanting more money. Being a bit greedy, but there you go. Schmeichel, really don't understand why we didn't go in for Moussa Diaby. Steidten already knows him. I've watched him in pre-season, and he looks great. Good shout, yeah. Well, maybe we didn't think that we are going to let Scamacca go. At the moment, he's not. Christopher, good evening to you. Antonio, Creswell, good players for us, but past their best. Vlasic never worked out for him. Not all players wanting to leave will be that massively missed, will they? Really good point. Many people have been criticising Creswell, saying that we're saying for a couple of years we need a replacement. Many people, including me, been criticising Antonio, saying we need a replacement. We need someone else to lead the line. I agree with you. Vlasic, didn't work. He's not going to be missed. Lanzini, who we all love, hardly played last season. So again, he's not likely to be missed as well. The only one at this moment in time that is going to be missed is that player that went to some North London club for a shitload of money. Scott, what if all these transfer rumours and infighting reports are all smoke and mirrors from Steidten to help us get the real players we want? Good shout. And the proof is going to be in who we finally end up with at the end of the transfer window. Really good shout. Trying to catch up. Boy, oh boy, I'm trying to catch up. So I'm going to have to catch up. I'm going to have to go. What are we on there? Let's go to around. Okay. You lot are right tonight. I love it. Trini, Italian clubs don't have the cash. Sky had Inter trying to do swap deals with Juventus involving Lukaku and Vlahovic. They do not have money. They do not have money. You're absolutely correct. Razor, Creswell being biggest liability. Watch the game he played in the last 2 years. Needed 4 nows and Benny to do his job. And 2 reds doesn't learn a thing. Get in Truffer quickly. We don't know if Truffer will work, but he sounds like an exciting young player. Inter are going to throw a defender in the mix. Yeah, we don't want him. The defender that they want. There was talk about Inter. I can't remember the defender's name, but he's not apparently one of their best players. Let's put it that way. So let's say no. GP, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You don't have to, but it's lovely. I really do appreciate that. Well, everyone has their different approaches, don't they? But thank you so much for that. Adam, Scamacca is how all players are nowadays. Too much power. Can't seem to hold on to a contract. It's all about money. He's a bit sulky. Do you remember when we had another sulky player and everyone said, oh, he's no good, he's no good? Hilaire. Now, Hilaire was fucking brilliant. Didn't matter how much he sulked. I wish we kept him, to be really honest with you. And Scamacca seems to have the same demeanour, a little bit sulky. Richard, Scamacca going without a doubt. Body language says so. Body language absolutely says so. But money talks. And if the Italian clubs have not got the money, he's not going to go. He's not going to go anywhere. Trini, why don't we don't have cover for Bowen. We have too many on the right and only one on the left. Good point. Well, I think maybe he'll be looking at maybe Cornet playing there sometimes. Who else though? Yeah. And maybe if we do get when we get Borges in, who's a left-sided player, maybe he'll use Benrahma over there a couple of times as well. Kent, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Fofana is a must and one other. Fofana, it'd be great if we do get him. Absolutely. John, would take anyone at this moment in time. Well, not everyone. Not everyone wants Maguire, for example. Schmeigel, I read that Sullivan wants Turkish player. I reckon us and Inter could try and do a swap deal with Scamacca going to Inter. But he's what, 29, 30 as well? I don't know. I don't like that deal at all, to be honest. Yeah, no. Hammer it. Someone said defender. He's a midfielder, though. Right. Hammer it. He said, please let him go. He knows he's not favoured and just wants a reserve player. He's just going to be a reserve player. His treatment with us has been awful. Who are you talking about? Is that Creswell or someone else? WHU. You can up it, Mikey. Amrit, WHU. Totally agree. So we'll love Johnson, but it's not our priority at the moment. Agreed. It's not our priority. Absolutely not. Garino. If anyone is anyone happy at West Ham at the moment, should organise a big pillow fight in the centre circle. Let's scroll down. Kent again. West Ham need minimum of 4 players without selling anyone, not including Borges. Fofana is a must with Gallagher. If I had a choice, no JWP, a centre back and a striker. I get what you're saying, because a lot of people are saying it's not just about the numbers, but it's about the quality as well. Improved quality. And saying that we need around 4 players, I don't altogether disagree with that, but they've got to be better than what we have. Of course, they've got to be better than what we have. But at this moment in time, like I said, should no one else leave, it wouldn't surprise me if we only get 2 or 3 players. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Couple of midfielders and a centre back. Wouldn't surprise me. Again, if anyone else leaves, then that's different. If Creswell goes, we get a left back and so on and so forth. Please forgive me. I've got to try and catch up. I really do. Razor. Agur definitely speaks languages. Intelligent, great player. Shane Moyes still here with Soucek, his love child. Please, Sullivan. Daniela. Sassuolo CEO Giovanni Carnevali on Scamacca. If we're Inter, Roma or Juve, I'd absolutely sign him. But if I were him, I'd stay in the Premier League. Rather go to any of those clubs. Interesting comment. Righty. The trouble with Steidten not doing anything now is we should be building on last season's success in Europe. Agreed. Since we're in Europe again, players should be knocking down on our door to join. 100% agree with that comment. Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. Please forgive me for missing out some of your comments, because I'm really desperately trying to catch up and also do all your comments justice as well. Jonathan. It's not about not giving youth a chance. Scamacca is our main striker, despite the crap tactics and the overuse of Antonio, so we should replace him. But all other striker spaces should be taken up by youth. Yeah, I think he's got. I think Mbama is really knocking on the door this season. Razor, any news still that Sully has grown a pair and sacked the narcissistic Moyes? Oh, it's Paqueta still. Who's? I know. I keep getting it wrong. I know that. I do try. Thomas, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes than watch Origi in a West Ham show. That's not happening. If you watch the show at the weekend, I was tipped off that Origi was coming to London with his agent, and I speculated, and I only speculated about London clubs, and I gave good reason for why he could join almost every other London club, and someone then cheekily said, you forgot Spurs because they're getting rid of Harry Kane. I don't think Origi will come to us. There was a time. I think that time's gone. Ken, Benny's not a wide player. He's a number 10. All right, true. Fornals is not a wide player. True again. He's a number 10 or on number 8. Brennan Johnson is a big miss. He can play wide or up front and pace the bird. I don't disagree with that. And maybe if we do get rid of Scamacca, there might be some truth in the Brennan Johnson thing. And maybe there might be some truth that Moyes hasn't turned them down. But until our players are sorted out, Creswell, Antonio, Scamacca, I don't think we're going to see players in those positions until we sort them out. Rhonda and Tony. Tomorrow's the 1st. Excuse me a sec. Tomorrow's the 1st of August, and we will see 3 or 4 signings in the next week. Maybe I'm dreaming. No, I don't think you are. Do I think we'll get players in before the first game of the season? Maybe not. Do I think we'll get players in before the transfer window shuts? I think definitely. Too many getting carried away. I can't read that, so you're going to have to bear with me a second. I can't see a thing without these. Well, too many getting carried away with Mbama talented. Yes, but too much expectation being put on his shoulders. I'm not saying that Mbama's the answer. Don't get me wrong. But I think we can't have it both ways. We can't shout from the rooftops, we need to give youth a chance. And then when an opportunity arises, we don't give youth a chance. I think Mbama, it looks like, I thought he'd be sent out on loan. It looks like he'll stay with the first team. I think Mbama will be given his chances this season. Do I think he should be a starter? Of course not. Absolutely. So I don't think I'm certainly not putting too much expectation on his shoulders. But I think, you know, the fan base keep crying out for use the youth, use the youth. We keep talking about buying young players who not much older than Barmer, you know, 21-year-olds, etc., for 35, 40 million pounds. Then why not just use Barmer in a role in an area that we might have that might be vacant? Lincoln. Kent Hammers, he's a talent. Can't believe Forest are selling. I can't. It's a weird one. It's a weird story. David, since ELC win, 2 coaches have left the club. Captain has left. Want to leave. Players want to leave. Tim not being backed and are the only club without a transfer. I know it looks awful. You're not wrong, David. It does look awful. Hammerit, like this fact. Thank you very much. Yeah, please. Should have said this about 2 hours ago. How long have I been on? An hour and 45. If you're new to the channel, hit the like, subscribe, and bell notification. It helps the channel grow. So please do subscribe or please hit the like button. It absolutely helps. Schmiegel, I'd love Cooper Miners for the midfield role. We were linked to him last summer. It's interesting. Nothing. Where did he go out? I think he might have gone somewhere. He might have been signed for somewhere else. Let's see. Who else have we got? NWO, I think Downs can step up. I think Downs needs to step up if he wants to stay at West Ham United, without a doubt. Malcolm, thanks for the back. I'll try. I hope it kind of made sense. Don't know. Maybe it didn't. Taz, could you imagine that someone like somehow Moyes gets this right and we have a good season? He would get a new contract. He would. Well, you know, if he got it right, if he got the right players in, and we did really, really well in the Premier League, and we won another cup, whether it be Europa or FA Cup or whatever, what would you say then? What could we as a fan base say? Oh, we still want him out. Oh, we don't like the football. We still want him out. Look, I won't lie. I think the football is going to be as turgid as it was last season. I think it will be. I think it'll be backs against the wall, try and nick a point away, hit teams on the break and all that sort of stuff. You know, it ain't, excuse me, it ain't going to be pretty. But imagine if he was successful with that. Imagine if we finished quite high in the Premier League. Let's say, for argument's sake, we finished high enough to get back into Europe again the following season, and we won a cup. What would people think then? It's just weird. Garino, West Ham are rejected latest Roma and Inter bids. Yeah, no surprise. Absolutely no surprise. They're not coming in with bids, chancing their arm. A bit like that North London team that chanced their arm with some player that we used to have who played in midfield. You know, they came in with their first bid was 65 million until they realised that we weren't fucking around, and then they ended up bidding what we wanted them to bid. You know, these Italian teams are doing no different to what Arsenal did. To be quite honest with you, you know, they're testing us out. You know, would you take this much money? No, we won't. Fuck off. Go and get some real money. Fred, Paqueta, Scammer, Bowen, and maybe Benny with the right manager are only players with something extra to get the goals as it stands right now. Well, I don't know. Let's see what Cornet does this season. He can get enough goals for us if he's played correctly. But yeah, Paqueta, Scamacca, Bowen, Benrahma. I'd throw Cornet in there. Let's not write him off just yet. Brian. Checking in from Cape Cod. Hello, mate. Nice. Thank you for joining in. It's panic time. Our club is shambles. It's embarrassing and extremely frustrating. Easy to foresee your horrible season. I get it why people feel that way. I get it. I'm not disagreeing with you. I get that. Ian, Roma offer central defender. I knew it was a central defender. Roger Ibanez as part of the deal to take Scamacca the other way. Ain't going to happen. Good evening to you, Wolf. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Good evening to you, Clive. I hope you're well. Moyes was told you're going to Australia or the job centre. What about Vlasic? Bye-bye, Vlasic. Here we go. Another, again, involving an Italian club. Torino said, we want to take Vlasic on loan. We'll agree to an option, not an obligation, an option to buy him. I think it was for £13 million, etc. And also, by the way, when we take him on loan, you're going to do us a favour because you're going to pay part of his salary. All right, West Ham? And we went, oh, fuck it. Yeah, go on then. Have him. Now that the season's over, they don't want to buy him for the agreed option to buy. They want to get him for much less, you know, because now they've all of a sudden realised, oh, shit, hang on a minute. We've got to pay all his salary. unless he takes a salary drop. You know, and Vlasic throwing a tizzy fit the other day, going, I'm fed up, doing all the Italian stuff. I'm fed up. Of course you're fed up, mate, because the club that said they're going to buy you at the end of the season haven't bought you. They want you for nothing, and they've admitted that they can't afford you. Anyway, the bottom line is, unless we don't get the money for him, he's going to languish in the reserves. Maybe he'll get some game time. Schmeigel, I will take anyone over Sullivan at this rate. Saudis would actually care about the club and listen to the fans. Will they? I don't know. I genuinely don't know if that will be the case. So, sod the Saudis. I'll be off watching non-league. Can't go against my beliefs. There you go. So it's not for everyone. Good evening, Mr. McLaren. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Lee, evening, Estelle. I'm worried West Ham will not sign. We will sign players. We may not sign enough of them, and we may not sign the ones that you want, but we will sign players. Aaron, no, I wouldn't. Can't stand the Saudi ownership. There you go. It's not for everyone. Trini, is if someone came in and bought the lot, including the land, the stadium, at least when you're looking at players, they see something attractive. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to read that one out. I'm not reading that comment. Trini, Napoli don't have at least 50 million that a Gerd is worth. Yeah, then it's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. Mobile data. I don't know what you mean. What did I say that prompted that response? Moyes' credit NWO. There you go. Some people still think he does. Schmeigel, imagine what Moyes would do to I can't pronounce his name. We'll probably turn him into a defender. Mikey, send Moyes back to Scotland with a Braveheart DVD wrap. Ben, probably we're trying to buy Premier League proven players is that no team is financially in a position where they have to sell anymore. All the TV money means teams can charge a premium. Really good point. Really good point, which is why these teams are holding out. And if Maguire ends up languishing on 180 grand a week on the subs bench, they ain't going to give a damn, you know. But if some fool's going to come and buy him for 30 million and pay him his wages, well, of course they're going to get rid of him. Of course they will. Trini, really good point though. About the TV money. I honestly think we won that trophy despite of Moyes. We just had it in us. His tactics were dire. I can't really, with the greatest of respect, I can't really agree with that. I think you can't say, we won it. You can't turn around and say we won it despite Moyes, and if we lose it, we lost it because of Moyes. It's kind of like, I don't know, mate. Garino, I miss the days of turning up at the bowling and seeing a new signing on the pitch. You knew nothing about it, wondering who is that, and is he a world beater? Only to realize you might get that in the beginning of next season. CC, still, I think you're wrong. We won the Conference Cup despite Moyes, not because of him. Yeah, people think that. I can't. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't think that. Christ almighty. I didn't realize the time. Right. Okay. Let's scroll right down. Let's scroll as far as we can go. Let's get to there. Right. That's half an hour behind. John, do you think Moyes is buying English players because they're only ones who could Steve, we all know that season's going to be like a BBC repeat, dull, boring. It will be boring. I do agree. It will not be happy football. Without a shadow of a doubt, it won't be happy football. We'll come away going, we won, but we were shit. Oliver, why would Fofana choose us over Chelsea? Well, that depends. Chelsea want Caicedo. I think they're only going to start looking elsewhere if they're not going to get Caicedo. I think they're really, really keen on getting him. They can offer high wages under Poch and a winning pedigree. Yeah. But we can offer David Moyes and Europa League football. And that might be enough. Wolf, must be deluded if you think waiting until deadline day to make deals is the right thing to do. It ain't the right thing to do. I can see it happening, but I don't think it'd be the right thing to do. NWO, think we'll be okay in the Premier League this year. I do. I know people are going to say you're silly by saying that, but I think it won't be pleasant. We will see some turgid performances, but I think we'll be okay-ish. Will we finish in the top 6, top 7, finish in the top? Yeah, probably not. We'll probably finish mid-table. Schmeigel, Like I've said many times before, it doesn't matter what leagues the players have played in. It's the tactics that matter most. Really good point. Yeah, totally agree with that. Hammers Mikey. He's not a nice man, and I'd renounce I'd renounce to have a temper. Proper wrong'un. Wouldn't be surprised if he hits his missus every morning because she misses out the four corners of it. Who are you? Who are you talking about? I don't know who you mean. Wolf, still have 2 weeks until the start of the season. Do you think they're signing anyone? Like I said earlier, it may not happen. We may not sign a new player before the start of the new season, but we will sign players before the window shuts. Razor, still his lowest in squad because he's crap, mate. Look at his stats last 2 years. Absolute liability, and his team is Liverpool. Can't wait for 3 mil. Still, because I'm so far behind, I don't know who you mean, and I kind of lost the thread. So, okay. Question. Wolf, still, do you think we'll sign anyone as we know? I think I've answered that. Looks like they will need to hit the ground running. Yeah, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't sign anyone before the season starts. Taz, our songs will change. West Ham are massive. The Championship. West Ham are massive in the Championship. Am I the only one who doesn't think we're going to go down? Hammerette. I watched the transfer rating show the other day. We got 4 out of 10. That was for getting 100 mil for him. That's not bad. So we only got to sign someone to get something like 6 out of 10. Daniel, best part of this window could be seeing Kane leave Spurs. Popcorn. I love how we love other teams suffering. Steve, we will be in a relegation scrap still if Skamaka is sold and our strike force is Ings and Antonio, not 10 goals in them both. That I agree with. But like I said, I think the goals will come elsewhere. Schmiegel, we're playing a dangerous game because if Moyes gets his way with transfers and it all goes wrong, a new manager is going to have to come in and pick us up from this mess with his players who's never signed. True. Good point. Let's scroll down to really, really try and catch up. You've been on it tonight. I've loved it. You've been on it, and thank you. Daniela, if you're putting us in a relegation battle, then you put 3 teams that come up, plus Everton, Wolves, Forest, Bournemouth, and even Spurs with their crap defence. No Kane. Yeah, good point. Good point. Let's try and catch up. Who else we got? Mandy, good evening to you. Hi, Stel. Let's not forget we are playing twice a week in a tougher European league with a much weaker squad so far. At the moment, much weaker. I kind of agree. I do get that. I do totally understand that. Joan, to Sean, fresh fielder. Take a bow for that one. What did you say? I've got to find Sean. The money for Ings was far too. Lincoln. It's bonkers, Mikey, when you think about it. We actually have no plan when it comes to transfers, and it looks like we really don't have a plan this season. It is a concern. It is a concern. Taz, we can't even think about the Europa League because all this stuff going on. We won't even get out of the group stages if we're in there. And we reached the semi-final season before last. Black Country, you've upset Hammerette with that statement about Lanzini. Lanzini's the love of her life, but unfortunately he didn't play hardly at all. Alvarez is who I'm looking for. You're absolutely right. Tasman, I had a really bad day. Thanks for cheering me up. And thank you for the donation. I'm glad I've managed to make you smile at least. Hammerette. It's not the same, Daniela, if they actually have got a new player or more to get excited about because you're upset because Lanzini's gone. Jacob, Harwood Bellis looks quality. Agreed. Be a good 5th centre-back. 4th. We've only got 3, unless you're counting Kara as a centre-back. Well, yeah, you could actually. Hopefully, the end of the season can go ahead. If Oggy he can go ahead in the pecking order of Oggy, get him and Borges for 30 million, then 2 quality centre mids for 67 million. Now, I said right at the start of the show that Borges was a Newman link, not a Steidten link. Harwood Bellis could be another one. It's a really good shout. Forgot to mention him earlier on. Really good shouts. Okay, Jacob again. Thanks, Joan. We don't need a centre-back who needs to play as we have top quality centre-back pairing already. We need a centre-back that can come in. Absolutely. I totally agree. And someone like Harwood Bellis would be ideal. A player for just about the here and now. Absolutely. Let's scroll down. Trying to put people in that haven't commented. Here we are. AJ, good evening to you. What do you think about us as a club? I believe we want to compete as a European club. Moyes has to go now. How is it all these years we still go for the has-beens and talent that doesn't want to be here? Well, let's get this in perspective. If we want to compete as a European club, Moyes has to go now. Under Moyes, we got to the semi-final of the Europa League and we won the Europa Conference League under Moyes. How is it all these years we're going for has-beens? We have in the past. The ironic thing about the players that we're linked to at the moment, especially the Premier League players, is not many would deem them as has-beens. You know, Ward-Prowse, all right. I think what worries us is the value that's put on them. So Ward-Prowse, 28 years of age, they want 40 million. Too much money for him. I agree. It's not necessarily a has-been though, because he could still give us at least 3 years of service. Maguire, 35 million or more, even more, at the age of 30. Again, you know, a central defender could play until he's 33, 34, you know, and so you'd argue that he wouldn't be a has-been either. Palina, 28 years of age, again, 45 million. It's the price tags that are the concern rather than whether these players are has-beens or not, because the price tag is off-putting. You know, because they've got that Premier League experience. But I would argue they're not necessarily has-beens. They won't have sell-on value. That's also another. That's also sure. Yeah, they still offer service, but it's the price tag and knowing that we can't get money back for them. Lincoln, criminal treatment of Vlasic by Moyes. Played on the wing is so bad by Moyes. I don't think he's been that great in Torino. I think he's been all right. You know. But he's not been brilliant for them. He's not, you know, he's not smashed it for them. Maybe Moyes was right on that. Keith, Cornet walks out the tunnel and the flag. I'm almost caught up. Taz, we will sign players. Next season, we will buy players. Maybe the season after, behind when Moyes leaves, really. Trodge. With Sully, it's top 5 in the league going into the window. 0 investment with the European Cup. Make press announcement. Going to sell best player. Look, I didn't like that he did the announcement the day after. But in all honesty, I knew why he did it. He wanted top dollar for Rice leaving. I am a mile behind. I'm not that far behind now. Joan, it'll be next month before Stell gets. Actually, you know what? Logistically, you're not actually wrong. Tony, what's the point in signing anyone when Scamacca leaves if Moyes' system doesn't get the best out of them? Good point. How many more Alairs and Scamacas will we have? Yeah, I agree. Mark, good evening to you, mate. Love the show. Keep up the even keel approach. Much needed. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Andrew, our league performance last season were horrific. That cup win was a miracle for Moyes. I agree. Matt, hard to keep the optimism, especially with no signings and losing Rice. Hard to believe that we won a trophy a few months ago and it's all gone tits up at the moment. Sully's birth. Keith, still need to be the lino when Cornet's on the field. He does get called offside a lot, doesn't it? Hammerette. I woke up today thinking about where a slug goes during the day. It used to be waking up wondering, have we signed anyone overnight? It's a sad affair. You lot are sad. But anyway, you keep me on my toes. Hammers Mikey was talking about Moistel. Oh, okay. He's renowned to have a temper and he's arrogant as hell. Not a nice. Oh, I got you. Yeah, okay. West Ham Life. We are signing Borges on August the 4th or 5th after he comes back from his holiday, people. As I said, Trini, Arsenal fans think we pulled their pants down. Yeah, we did. But Chelsea were proper with spending 100 million on Fernandes. Watched him yesterday. He looked half the value. Yeah. Do you know what? Look, I'm glad we sold Rice for 100 million, 105 million. You know, it was the right thing to do. Sell him for as much as you can. Did we pull their pants down? Well, of course we did. For a supposedly defensive midfielder, you know, you'd want to pay that for someone who's scoring 10, 15 goals a season, wouldn't you? But good luck to him. AJ, you know what? Just get Suarez on a free and have a Liverpool triple SSS this year. No, thanks. Suarez. Keith, Slugs are hiding from the old bill because they're snell burglars and only come out at night. There you go. It's the happy hour. Now we're into that, aren't we? Jacob. Gary, JWP and Souček would be a worse midfield than Downs and Souček, though not on talent, but just on the balance of styles. Look, the only thing with JW, I don't think it'd be worse, but he doesn't have pace, set pieces and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely. But he doesn't have pace. Dawson is better than Maguire. Well, he proved to be. And look at the furore when we signed Craig Dawson. What's going on? Why are we signing him? And then we were like, oh my God, don't let him go. Andrew. Most of Moyes' targets are players unwanted at their clubs, but want silly money taking the pit. They are. Sean, it's not like we're experts at turning a profit on players we buy. We're 10 out of 10 losing bundles. That is very true. Come on, I'm nearly there. Jacob, everyone on here is a lot better than Twitter lot. Be nice, no arguments, thank Lord. I hope you've subscribed, mate. You can come in and do all the chat like this all the time. So hit that subscription button. Gary, we need someone to fill Rice's place. JWP does that. Max Aarons, Inacho, and Fofana. JWP is not a defensive midfielder, so it'll be a different style of play, but he's not necessarily a holding midfielder. Max Aarons on the right. Do we need a right back at the moment? Probably not. Inacho, interesting call. And Fofana, absolutely, definitely. And look, I've caught up. Yes, it's been a great chat. Just what I needed. That's wonderful. Just subscribe tonight. Don't worry. Thank you very much. That's what I like. Daniela, I think Arsenal pulled their own pants down and That's true. Taz, is it Moyes that put players off or the status of our club? I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's probably, but there are probably players that look at Moyes and go, probably don't want to play for you, mate, to be quite honest with you. But the players that we're going for, we are having the piss taken out of us. Everyone's seen that we sold Declan Rice for 100 mil, and they want a portion of that. They want a large chunk of that. Oh, yeah, you want Maguire, 40 million. You want JWP, 40 million, etc. People are trying to pull our pants down, just like we pulled, or as Daniela said, Arsenal pulled their own pants down. We pulled our own pants down several times over, as people said, in losing so much money on players in the past. Trini, Borges, Truffert, Fofana, and if it has to be JW, that would be a good window. Borges, Truffert, Fofana, and JW. I take that. Bedside way passer in the world. That's Mark Noble, wasn't it? Jacob, I feel like JWP and Souček will get overrun. Well, I agree, their pace. And then Downs and Souček, more than Downs and Souček. Well, Downs is a defensive midfielder. So in that respect, yeah, I agree. Alvarez and Fofana, that will be my ideal midfield. JWP is a no from me. As for McCall, I know. Can we still pull it our pants down? It's not a good vision, is it? AJ, if budgets don't mean anything, who would you buy for the front three replacing our existing ones? You know what, AJ, I don't know is the answer, because it's not so much who I would buy, it's what will fit into Moyes' system, and that I don't know. But yeah, good question though. Good question. Andrew. Out of all Moyes targets, I'd take McTominay. Yeah, as I've said in previous shows, as individuals, as Maguire goes, JWP goes, Gallagher goes, McTominay goes, etc. As individual players, they're all right. But you wouldn't want all of them, would you? That's the thing. Ending up spending 100 million on players who are kind of quite old. West Ham Live. I can't wait for West Ham to have another amazing transfer. Jacob, thank you, Happy. I guess I needed to subscribe. I'm already in a few others. Thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't and you're still watching, what are you waiting for? Cheers, Stel Lee. Come on, you eyes were massive. Great show. Night all, be safe. Thank you, mate. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being involved. Really appreciate that. Right, that's it. I'm stopping because I've gone on for 2 hours. Right, everyone. Thank you all very much. I really love the chat. Absolutely. Do forgive me. Trying to keep up. It's, I try my best, but, I really appreciate all the comments. As you can see, I always put comments, whatever your comments are, I put them in. Sometimes I don't understand them. That's only because I'm about 3 hours behind on the chat. Look, I'm sure there'll be more things happening. I'll be back again. I'm thinking about doing a Friday night show. No, I can't. I'm away. Forget that. Forget I even said that. I'll be back. I'll do a few shows during the week, pre-recorded, to talk about all the signings that we're getting. Because you just know. You just know it's all going to start happening, isn't it? You know, God, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for commenting. I'll see you all very soon. Have a good week. Don't get upset about West Ham United because you know it will all work out in the end. Have a great week, and I'll see you all very soon.